A millionaire checked his employee's lunchbox and fell for her without realizing. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us return to our main character. It was just past noon when the office finally went quiet. The kind of quiet that only happens during lunch hour, when keyboards stop clicking, phones stop ringing, and most people disappear into break rooms, cars, or nearby diners. Sunlight slipped through the tall glass windows, casting long stripes across the polished floor of the executive level. Ethan Carter remained alone. He stood in his private office, jacket draped over the back of his chair, sleeves rolled neatly to his forearms. On his desk sat a neat stack of reports worth millions of dollars, yet his attention drifted elsewhere. Down the hall, the faint hum of the employee break room caught his ear. He did not usually notice things like that. As the founder and majority owner of the company, Ethan had long trained himself to focus on numbers, strategies, and outcomes. People were assets on paper, productivity charts, performance reviews, names on a screen. But today, something small pulled him off course. He stepped into the break room, intending only to pour himself a cup of black coffee before his next meeting. The room was nearly empty. A microwave beeped softly, forgotten. A round table held several paper bags and plastic containers, clearly left behind in a rush. One lunchbox, however, stood apart. It was old, faded blue fabric. The zipper had been stitched twice, clumsily by hand. It did not belong in a building like this, surrounded by stainless steel appliances and designer suits. Ethan frowned, not in judgment but curiosity. He picked it up without thinking, intending to move it aside so the cleaning staff would not throw it away. The weight surprised him, lighter than expected. He hesitated, then slowly unzipped it. Inside was not what he expected. No takeout containers, no expensive salads, no brand names, just a simple sandwich wrapped carefully in wax paper. A small apple, a plastic container holding what looked like homemade soup, and tucked neatly on top, a folded napkin with handwriting on it. Ethan unfolded the napkin. "Eat the apple last. Save the soup for tonight." He froze. The words were written in blue ink, slightly uneven, as if written quickly, yet with care. There was no name, no explanation, just a quiet instruction, meant for someone who needed to stretch one meal into two. Ethan closed the lunchbox slowly. For the first time in years, something tightened in his chest that had nothing to do with profit or loss. He had reviewed hundreds of employee files. He knew salaries, he knew job titles. But this told him something no spreadsheet ever could. The door opened behind him. A young woman stepped inside, stopping short when she saw him holding the lunchbox. Her face drained of color. "I am so sorry," she said quickly, her voice calm but edged with panic. "That is mine. I did not mean to leave it here." Ethan turned. She stood straight, hands clasped in front of her, wearing a simple blouse and slacks that had been pressed more times than they should have been. Her employee badge read, Lily Morgan, Administrative Assistant, Level 1. "I was just moving it," Ethan replied evenly, handing it back. "I did not mean to pry." She took it, nodding once. "It is fine. Thank you." Their eyes met for a brief moment. There was no embarrassment in hers, no apology beyond courtesy, just quiet dignity. As she walked out, Ethan watched her go, unaware that this small, ordinary moment had already begun to undo him. He did not know her story yet. He did not know her sacrifices. He only knew that something about a simple lunchbox had followed him back to his office, settling into his thoughts, refusing to leave. And without realizing it, the millionaire had just taken his first step toward falling in love. Lily Morgan did not rush back to her desk. She walked the long way around the floor, lunchbox held close against her side, her steps measured and quiet. Not because she was afraid, but because she had learned long ago that drawing attention never helped. In a building filled with ambition, it was safer to move like background noise. She slid into her chair and powered on her computer as if nothing unusual had happened. Emails waited, calendar reminders blinked, a request for copies, a request for coffee, a request for overtime. Lily answered them all. What no one saw was the way her fingers tightened around the edge of the desk when her stomach growled, or how she glanced at the clock, calculating whether she could wait until evening to eat, or how the blue lunchbox, now tucked beneath her chair, felt heavier than it should have. She had packed that meal carefully the night before. The soup was left over from a batch she cooked on Sunday, enough to last 3 dinners if she stretched it. The sandwich was half of what she usually ate at lunch. The apple was for later, always for later. She wrote herself notes sometimes, not because she forgot, but because it helped her stay disciplined. It helped her survive. Lily had been with the company for just over a year. Entry level, no connections, no safety net. Her paycheck went fast. Rent first, utilities second, groceries last. There was never much left after that. She did not complain. When coworkers ordered food, she smiled and said she had brought lunch. When someone offered to cover her meal, she declined politely. Pride was not the reason. Habit was. Accepting help always came with questions, and questions led to explanations she did not want to give. So she worked harder. She stayed late. She covered shifts. She volunteered for tasks no one wanted. She believed that if she proved herself useful enough, dependable enough, she could stay invisible and employed at the same time. Across the hall, Ethan Carter sat behind his desk, staring at a report without reading a single word. The image of that lunchbox refused to leave him. He had built companies from nothing. He had seen struggle up close when he was younger, before success hardened him into efficiency and distance. Somewhere along the way, he had stopped looking at the small details. He told himself it was necessary, that leaders had to focus on the big picture. But the handwritten note replayed in his mind. Save the soup for tonight. Tonight. Not later, not tomorrow. Tonight. It was not dramatic. It was not tragic. It was practical. And somehow, that made it hit harder. He glanced at the employee directory on his tablet and found her name. Lily Morgan, Administrative Assistant, Level 1. No warnings, no complaints, solid performance reviews, always on time, always helpful. Ethan leaned back in his chair, exhaling slowly. He wondered how many stories like hers existed inside his company, hidden behind polite smiles and quiet competence. He wondered how many times he had walked past them without noticing. At 3:30, Lily was asked to help prepare materials for a last-minute meeting. She did it without hesitation, even though she had planned to leave on time for once. The printer jammed twice. Someone snapped at her for a missing page. She apologized anyway. By the time she finished, the office was thinning out again. She checked the lunchbox, still untouched. Her stomach tightened, but she closed it gently and placed it back under her chair. She could wait. She always did. As she stood to leave, she felt eyes on her. Ethan watched from the doorway of his office, unseen. He saw the way she straightened her shoulders before walking out. He saw the way she paused, just briefly, as if steadying herself. In that moment, he did not see an employee. He saw restraint, quiet strength, a person carrying more than she let on. And for the first time, Ethan Carter questioned something he had never questioned before. What did it truly mean to take care of the people who worked for him? The question followed him long after the lights dimmed and the building emptied, lingering like a promise he had not yet decided how to keep. The next morning began like every other for Lily Morgan. She woke before sunrise, the small alarm on her phone buzzing softly on the nightstand beside her bed. The apartment was quiet, the kind of quiet that made even simple movements feel loud. She dressed carefully, choosing the same neutral colors that helped her blend in at work, then moved to the kitchen. The blue lunchbox sat on the counter. Lily opened it and prepared the same routine she followed each weekday. Soup reheated slowly on the stove, bread toasted just enough. She packed everything with intention, measuring portions not by appetite, but by necessity. Before closing the lid, she paused, then slipped a second folded napkin inside. For later, just in case. She did not know why she wrote it. Maybe it was habit, maybe it was hope. At the office, Ethan Carter arrived earlier than usual. He walked past the reception desk without stopping, his mind already elsewhere. Sleep had not come easily the night before. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw that faded lunchbox again, heard the quiet restraint in Lily's voice, felt the weight of a reality he had chosen not to see for years. He did not call human resources. He did not summon managers. He did not announce anything. Instead, he decided to watch. Throughout the morning, he noticed Lily everywhere once he began paying attention, carrying files between departments, refilling the printer paper before anyone asked, staying late with a colleague who was struggling to finish a report. She never complained, never sighed loudly, never drew attention to herself. At 11:45, Ethan passed the break room again. He slowed. Inside, Lily stood at the counter, lunchbox open, spoon resting in her hand. She looked at the soup for a long moment without eating, then glanced at the door as if checking whether anyone was watching. She ladled only half into a small bowl. The rest, she carefully closed and set aside. Ethan felt something twist inside him. This was not a performance. There was no audience, no reward, just a quiet decision made when no one was supposed to notice. Lily sat alone at the small table by the window. She ate slowly, methodically, savoring each bite as if stretching time itself. When she finished, she wiped the bowl clean with a paper towel, then tucked the untouched container back into the lunchbox. Before standing, she slid the apple out and placed it beside another lunchbox on the table next to her, a coworker's, unopened. She left without saying a word. Ethan stepped into the room only after she was gone. The apple remained, red, polished, unbitten. He picked it up, then stopped, his hand hovering in the air. The realization settled over him with uncomfortable clarity. She was not saving food for herself. She was sharing it. The rest of the day passed in a blur for Ethan. Meetings lost their sharpness. Conversations felt distant. He found himself replaying small moments, tiny gestures he had ignored for too long. Meanwhile, Lily returned to her desk and worked through the afternoon without incident. No one thanked her for the help she gave. No one noticed the apple. That was fine. She had never done these things to be seen. By early evening, the office emptied again. Lily packed her things, lunchbox included, and stood to leave. As she reached the elevator, a voice stopped her. "Lily." She turned. Ethan Carter stood a few feet away, no jacket, sleeves rolled up, expression unreadable. "Yes, sir?" she asked calmly. "Do you have a moment?" he said. She nodded. As they stood there in the quiet hallway, Lily had no idea that the careful, unseen kindness she practiced every day had just crossed an invisible line. And Ethan Carter was no longer observing from a distance. He was stepping closer. They did not go far. Ethan led Lily to a small conference room near the end of the hallway, one rarely used at that hour. The glass walls reflected the dimming light outside, the city beginning its slow transition into evening. He closed the door gently, not with authority, but consideration. "Please, sit," he said. Lily did, folding her hands in her lap, posture straight. She had learned how to sit like this long ago, alert, respectful, prepared for anything. Ethan remained standing for a moment, as if choosing his words carefully. "I wanted to thank you," he began. She looked up, surprised. "For what, sir?" "For your work. You are consistently reliable. People speak well of you." Lily nodded once. Compliments were rare, but she did not chase them. "I am just doing my job." "I know," Ethan said. "That is exactly why I wanted to say something." There was a pause, not awkward, just quiet. He glanced at the lunchbox resting beside her chair, then back at her face. "May I ask you something personal?" She hesitated, then answered honestly. "You may ask. You do not have to answer if you do not want to. I understand." Ethan took a breath. "Why do you always eat alone?" The question was simple, not accusatory, not probing. Lily considered it. "I like the quiet," she said after a moment. "It helps me think." That was true, just not the whole truth. Ethan nodded, accepting the answer without pushing further. He respected the boundary, even as his curiosity deepened. "I noticed you help others often," he said. "You stay late, you cover for people. You give more than what is required." Lily offered a small smile. "Sometimes people need help, and you never ask for anything in return." She shrugged lightly. "I have never expected anything in return." Something about the way she said it made Ethan feel unsteady. Not pity, something closer to admiration. "I saw you in the break room today," he said carefully. "At lunch." Her fingers tightened slightly, just for a second. "I hope I did not do anything wrong," she said calmly. "No," Ethan replied quickly. "You did not." He met her eyes. "You did something kind, when no one was watching." The room felt smaller then. Lily lowered her gaze. "It was nothing." Ethan disagreed, but he did not say it out loud. Instead, he surprised himself by saying something else. "I used to believe leadership was about efficiency," he said. "About results, about pushing people to their limits." She listened quietly. "I am starting to think I may have been wrong." Lily looked up again, meeting his eyes with quiet curiosity. Ethan smiled faintly. "I would like to get to know the people in this company better, starting with you." Her expression remained composed, but something softened. "I am just an assistant," she said. "You are more than that," Ethan replied, without hesitation. The elevator chimed faintly down the hall. "I should not keep you," he added. "It has been a long day." She stood, lifting her lunchbox. "Thank you for your time, sir." "Ethan," he corrected gently. She paused. "Ethan." As she walked out, Ethan watched her leave, aware that this conversation had crossed another quiet line. He had not revealed who he truly was yet. But for the first time, he was no longer hiding from himself. The change did not happen all at once. It arrived quietly, folded into ordinary days. Ethan did not suddenly become generous, nor did he announce new policies or grand intentions. Instead, he began doing something far more unfamiliar to him. He paid attention. In meetings, he noticed who spoke and who stayed silent. In hallways, he noticed who carried extra work without complaint. And in the break room, he noticed patterns that had once been invisible. Especially Lily. She continued exactly as before. She arrived early. She stayed late. She answered questions before they were asked. She never lingered at her desk when someone else needed help. And she never complained when her own workload doubled. What Ethan noticed most, however, was what she did when she thought no one was watching. On Thursday afternoon, a junior employee was reprimanded sharply for a mistake that had not been entirely his fault. Lily said nothing during the exchange. She did not interrupt. She did not defend him publicly. But after the meeting ended, Ethan saw her approach the young man quietly. She handed him a stack of notes, her own handwriting covering the pages. "I already fixed most of it," she said gently. "You can use this." The man stared at the papers, stunned. "You did not have to do that." "I know," Lily replied, "but it might help." She walked away before he could thank her. Another day, an intern skipped lunch entirely, claiming a deadline. Ethan saw Lily open her lunchbox, hesitate, then close it again. 10 minutes later, she returned with 2 cups of water and half her sandwich, placing it on the intern's desk without a word. No explanation, no credit. Each time, Ethan felt the same uncomfortable tightening in his chest. These were not gestures made for praise, they were habits. By Friday, an opportunity presented itself. A temporary team lead position opened unexpectedly. It came with a small pay increase and visibility. Several employees were eager for it. Lily was qualified, though not the most vocal candidate. Ethan asked for recommendations. A manager hesitated. "She is capable," he said, "but she does not push herself forward. She lets others take the spotlight." Ethan nodded slowly. That afternoon, Lily was called into another meeting room. She arrived calm, expecting instructions or another task. Instead, Ethan gestured for her to sit. "There is an opening," he said, "a temporary leadership role." Her eyes flickered, just briefly. Hope, then caution. "I see," she replied carefully. "You would be eligible," Ethan continued, "but it would require longer hours, more responsibility." Lily thought for a moment. "Who else is being considered?" she asked. Ethan answered honestly. She nodded. "Then I would prefer to step aside." He looked at her, surprised. "May I ask why?" She took a breath. "The others need the hours more than I do right now, and one of them has a family situation that would benefit from the pay increase." There it was again, the quiet choice. Ethan studied her, searching for hesitation, for hidden motive. He found none. "You could use the money," he said gently. "Yes," Lily replied. "But someone else needs it more." The room went silent. In that moment, Ethan understood something he had not allowed himself to understand before. This was not weakness. This was strength without witnesses. He dismissed her shortly after, thanking her for her honesty. Lily left, unaware that she had just passed a test she did not know existed. Ethan remained seated long after she was gone. The moral test had not been planned, but it had answered every question he was afraid to ask. And with that answer came a realization he could no longer ignore. He was not just observing Lily anymore. He was being changed by her. The reveal did not come with fanfare. It arrived on a Monday morning, disguised as routine. Lily was halfway through organizing invoices when an all-staff email appeared in her inbox. The subject line was simple, almost dull. "Company-wide meeting, auditorium, 10:30 sharp." She frowned slightly. Meetings like this were rare, and usually involved upper management only. Still, attendance was mandatory. She saved her work, grabbed a notebook, and joined the slow stream of employees heading downstairs. The auditorium filled quickly. Conversations hummed. People speculated quietly about restructuring, new investors, possible changes. Lily took a seat near the aisle, far enough back to avoid attention. She had no expectations. The lights dimmed. A senior executive stepped onto the stage and cleared his throat. He spoke about growth, about vision, about the company's future. Lily listened politely, her thoughts drifting to the tasks waiting on her desk. Then the tone shifted. "And now," the executive said, smiling, "I would like to introduce the person who started all of this." Applause erupted. Lily looked up. Ethan Carter walked onto the stage. Not the Ethan from the hallway. Not the Ethan who rolled up his sleeves and asked careful questions. This Ethan moved with quiet authority, his presence commanding the room without effort. Founder, owner, billionaire. The air seemed to leave Lily's lungs all at once. She stared, frozen, as he took the microphone and thanked the team. His voice was the same, calm, measured, but now every word carried weight she had never attached to it before. Her mind raced backward. The break room, the lunchbox, the questions, the way he had watched her. He had known, all along. Applause thundered again as Ethan finished speaking. People stood. Lily remained seated, her hands gripping her notebook so tightly her knuckles ached. She felt exposed, observed, tested. The meeting ended, and the crowd began to disperse. Lily stayed where she was, heart pounding, until the room emptied enough for her to stand without drawing attention. She did not return to her desk. She walked. Down the hallway, past offices, past faces she no longer wanted to meet. She reached the small outdoor terrace attached to the building and pushed the door open, breathing in the cold air like it might steady her. Footsteps followed. "Lily." She turned. Ethan stood a few feet away, his jacket back on now, his expression serious. "I should have told you," he said quietly. Her voice surprised even herself, steady, controlled. "You should have." "I did not intend to deceive you," he continued. "I was trying to understand." She shook her head. Understanding someone without their consent is still deception. The words landed between them. Ethan absorbed them without defense. "You did not know who I was," she went on. "You watched me. You evaluated me, while I believed you were just another person." "That is true," he said. Her eyes filled, but she did not let the tears fall. "I would never have acted differently," she said. "But knowing that you were judging me changes everything." "I was not judging," Ethan replied. "I was learning." "At my expense," Lily said. Silence stretched. "I fell for you before I realized it," Ethan said softly, "before the title mattered." She laughed once, humorless. "The title always mattered. I just did not know it yet." She stepped back. "I need time," she said, "and distance." Ethan nodded. "I will give you both." She left him standing there, the lunchbox heavy at her side. For the first time, the reveal had not brought gratitude or relief. It had brought a choice, and Lily intended to make it on her own terms. The distance Lily asked for was quiet, but unmistakable. The next morning, she arrived on time, as she always did. She completed her tasks with the same precision. She answered emails politely. She assisted coworkers when needed, but something had changed. She no longer lingered. She avoided the break room during lunch. She stopped staying late unless it was absolutely necessary. When Ethan passed her desk, she kept her focus on her screen, her voice formal, her words efficient. "Good morning, sir. Yes, sir. I will have that ready shortly." No warmth, no softness, no eye contact that lasted longer than required. Ethan felt it immediately. He had expected anger, perhaps even confrontation. What he had not expected was this controlled withdrawal. It was not punishment, it was self-protection, and it hurt more than any accusation could have. He respected her boundary. He did not seek her out. He did not ask for private conversations. Instead, he watched the company shift under the weight of his own realization. He began making changes, not for Lily, but because he could no longer pretend not to see. Policies were reviewed. Overtime was compensated properly. Quiet contributors were acknowledged publicly. Team leads were instructed to listen more than they spoke. The company responded. Productivity improved. Morale lifted. Lily noticed. She noticed that a coworker who had been overlooked was promoted. She noticed that the intern who skipped lunches was assigned manageable hours. She noticed that no announcement claimed credit for these changes. Still, she remained distant. One evening, as she prepared to leave, She saw a familiar blue lunchbox sitting on the counter in the break room. It was hers. She had forgotten it in the rush of the day. Inside, everything was untouched. She closed it slowly, her chest tightening, not because of hunger, but because the routine had lost its meaning. Sharing felt complicated now. Vulnerability felt risky. She stepped outside into the cool air, unsure whether to feel proud of her independence or lonely in its cost. Across the street, Ethan sat in his car, hands resting on the steering wheel, watching the building lights turn off one by one. He had done what she asked. He had given her space. But space, he was learning, did not heal everything. He remembered her words clearly. Understanding someone without their consent is still deception. The truth stung because it was fair. That night, Ethan made a decision. If he wanted to earn anything from Lily again, it would not be through observation, authority, or advantage. It would have to be through accountability. The next morning, a message went out to the entire company. A voluntary listening forum. No hierarchy, no titles. Employees were invited to speak openly about what they needed, anonymously if they chose. Ethan would attend. Lily read the email twice. She did not plan to speak. She had learned how dangerous honesty could be when power was uneven. Still, something in her shifted. Not trust, not yet, but curiosity. At the forum, she sat among dozens of co-workers, her presence unremarkable. Ethan sat in the same chair as everyone else. No stage, no microphone. One by one, people spoke. About exhaustion, about fear, about invisible labor. Ethan listened. He did not interrupt. He did not explain. He wrote notes by hand. Then, unexpectedly, Lily stood. The room fell quiet. She spoke without naming herself, without accusation. She spoke about what it felt like to give without being seen, to share because it was right, not because it was rewarded, to work hard while protecting one small piece of dignity. When she finished, she sat back down. Ethan did not look at her, but something in his expression told her he had heard every word. The distance between them remained, but for the first time since the reveal, it no longer felt like a wall. It felt like a path that still needed to be earned. The shift did not happen overnight, but it became impossible to ignore. After the listening forum, things inside the company began to move with intention. Not loudly, not performatively, but deliberately. Ethan followed through on every note he had taken. He created a quiet fund to support employees facing temporary hardship, administered anonymously so no one would feel exposed. He restructured workloads so overtime was no longer an unspoken expectation. He instructed managers to recognize contributions that usually went unseen. No emails announced these changes with his name attached. Lily noticed anyway. She noticed when a coworker quietly thanked her for helping him stay afloat during a difficult month. She noticed when an intern smiled with relief after being told to go home on time. She noticed when her own workload became manageable for the first time since she had joined the company. Still, she said nothing. Trust, once cracked, did not return easily. One evening, weeks later, Lily stayed late to finish a report. The office was nearly empty when she finally shut down her computer. She stood, stretching slightly, and reached beneath her chair. Her lunchbox was gone. Her heart skipped. She searched her desk, the break room, the hallway. Nothing. Panic tightened her chest. That lunchbox was old, yes, but it was hers. Familiar, reliable. A small constant she had carried through harder days than most people would ever know. She returned to her desk, forcing herself to breathe. Then she saw the note. It rested neatly beside her keyboard. "Please meet me in the break room. I owe you something." No name was signed. Lily hesitated, then picked up the note and walked down the hall. The break room lights were dimmed. Ethan stood by the counter, the blue lunchbox resting between his hands. It had been cleaned carefully, the zipper repaired properly, the stitching reinforced but unchanged. "I hope it is all right," he said quietly. "I did not want to replace it. I wanted to return it better." She stared at the lunchbox, emotions rising unexpectedly. "You should not have taken it," she said. "I know," Ethan replied. "That is why I am returning it personally and apologizing again." He slid it toward her, then stepped back. "I do not expect forgiveness," he continued, "and I am not asking for gratitude. I only want you to know that I have listened, and I will keep listening." Lily opened the lunchbox slowly. Inside was her usual meal: the soup, the sandwich, the apple, and a folded napkin. Her breath caught as she opened it. "Eat now. You do not have to save everything for later." She looked up. Ethan did not smile. He did not explain. He only met her gaze, steady and sincere. "This is not an offer," he said. "It is a choice, on your terms." For a long moment, Lily said nothing. Then she closed the lunchbox and held it against her chest. "This does not change everything," she said carefully. "I understand," Ethan replied. "But it changes something," she continued. She met his eyes fully for the first time in weeks. "That matters." She turned to leave, lunchbox in hand, heart heavier and lighter all at once. Behind her, Ethan remained standing in the quiet room, knowing that the grand gesture he had chosen was not money, power, or promises. It was respect, and for the first time, Lily began to believe that it might be enough to build something real. Time did what confrontation could not. It softened the sharp edges. Weeks passed, then months. The company settled into a new rhythm, one that felt steadier, more humane. People still worked hard, but they no longer felt invisible while doing it. The changes Ethan had put into place endured, not because he enforced them, but because they worked. Lily noticed the difference most in the small moments. Lunch breaks became quieter, but fuller. Not louder, not extravagant, just unhurried. She still brought her blue lunchbox every day. She still packed carefully. But now, she ate when she was hungry, not when she could endure no longer. Sometimes, she shared. Sometimes, she did not. And for the first time, both felt equally acceptable. Ethan kept his distance, just as he had promised. Their interactions remained professional, respectful, balanced. But something unspoken lived beneath every exchange, no longer heavy, but present. One afternoon, as autumn light filtered through the office windows, Lily found a message waiting on her desk. "Would you join me for lunch today? No obligations, no expectations." She stared at the note for a long moment. Then she picked up her lunchbox and stood. They sat outside, on a simple bench across the street from the building. No conference room, no titles, just two people and the city moving quietly around them. Lily opened her lunchbox. Soup, sandwich, apple. Ethan smiled, not at the food, but at the familiarity of it. "This was never about the lunchbox," he said gently. "I know," Lily replied. "It was about what it represented." They ate in comfortable silence for a while. "I want to say something," Ethan said eventually, "and I will understand if you do not feel the same." She looked at him, calm and open. "I fell in love with you before I knew how powerful you were," he continued, "and I stayed because of who you are, not what you give." Lily considered his words carefully. "I stayed because you changed," she said. "Not for me, for everyone." She reached into her lunchbox and pulled out the napkin he had written on weeks before. She had kept it, folded neatly. "This," she said, "was the moment I realized you saw me as a person." Ethan nodded. "I would like to build something real," he said. "Slowly, honestly, without imbalance." Lily smiled softly. "Then we start here," she said, offering him half her sandwich. He took it. Months later, the blue lunchbox sat framed in a quiet corner of the company headquarters, not as a symbol of hardship, but of humanity. Employees passed it every day without knowing the full story. But Lily and Ethan did. Love had not arrived with wealth, power, or revelation. It arrived quietly, in a shared meal, in respect earned, in the choice to see someone fully and to be changed by it. And sometimes, that was all it took to change everything.